And that was followed by a Q&A session. And this one stayed in my memory because one of the questions was from a charming gentleman who said with great conviction that all these fancy electric cars are all well and good, and that's a quote, but we're just going to throw all the batteries into landfill. And he didn't ask if we might one day throw them into landfill, or indeed, are there any plans with what to do with them after they reach the end of their useful life? No, he said with great earnestness that we will throw them away. I suggested he Google redwood materials, as that was the only example I could think of at the time. It did make me think, are we all living in an electric vehicle fantasy bubble? If we're digging up and extracting all these materials to make our fancy electric cars, and we don't recycle the materials, then we could easily end up in nearly as bad a mess as extracting and burning fossil fuels for 150 years. Or could we? So I worried about that until I saw some figures from Dr. Simon Evans, a recent guest on the Fully Charged podcast, which of course you should subscribe to because it's brilliant. Now, Simon is deputy editor at Carbon Brief and someone whose full-time job is analysing and reporting on the energy transition and the impacts of our energy requirements. Dr. Evans gave me a slightly different take on the mining argument that some pro-fossil fuel lobbyists and proponents use again and again.
What about all the CO2 that's released when you make a battery?
Well, it's true. It's true. No, don't try and fob over it, Llewellyn. It is true. We released 100,000 tons of CO2 on Earth mining and refining lithium in 2021. 100,000 tons of CO2 just for lithium in 1 year. That is shocking. We released 170,000 tons of CO2 mining and refining cobalt. Seriously, I mean, that is a disgrace. But it gets worse. What about the 2,700,000 tons of CO2 produced mining and refining nickel? Well, okay, nickel is used in a wide range of different products, but it is used in electric car batteries. That is seriously bad, and it still gets worse because we released 26 million tons of CO2 mining and refining copper in 2021. Oh my God, I mean, what more proof do you need? And they claim these electric cars are clean? It's disgraceful. It's truly offensive. And then we released 2,600,000,000 tons of CO2 due to extracting and refining iron ore. Okay, that may not be specific to electric cars, but my goodness, that is a massive number. However, it's still smaller than the 2,737,000,000 tons released using natural gas. That's extracting it, transporting it, and burning it. Okay, then there's the real biggie. Oh my life. We are dumping 4,221,000,000 tons of CO2 in the process of extracting, refining, and burning oil. 4,221,000,000 tons. And finally, top of the smouldering tree when it comes to burning stuff, the fuel the Industrial Revolution was built on, the stuff that should now only be in museums because children don't know what it is. I'm talking about coal, because digging up, shipping and burning coal vomits out a jaw-dropping 8,172,000,000 tons of CO2 each year, in contrast with 700,000 tons extracting a substance that has a 15 to 25-year life in a battery and can then be recycled. So a bit of perspective there. Okay, so even with that perspective, we have to change the way we operate. We have to live in a circular economy where we don't just chuck stuff away. Battery recycling, is it really happening? Yes, it is. Now, here's good news from Europe on this. Hydrovolt is a battery recycling joint venture between Northvolt, the Swedish battery maker, who we've also had on the Fully Charged podcast, we mentioned many times in the show, and Hydro, an aluminium manufacturer on the path to becoming super sustainable. And they have started commercial recycling operations at their plant in Fredrikstad in Norway. Hydrovolt is Europe's largest electric vehicle battery recycling plant, with capacity to process 12,000 tons of battery packs on an annual basis. The fully automated recycling process at Hydrovolt enables up to 95% of battery metals to be recovered from the batteries, including plastics, copper, aluminium, and black mass, which is a powder containing the metals of nickel, manganese, cobalt, and lithium, which will be supplied to Northvolt for further recycling and then making into new batteries.